Welcome to this informal workshop. This is a first gathering on this, what we think is a breakthrough in our research, namely the idea of offer network. It's a provisional name, it probably will change. But the whole idea is to introduce a new paradigm for the sharing economy and the global brain. It's an idea that comes from different sides, most directly inspired by a work by Brussel, who had a short paper about that, and then lots of work that we have been doing at the Global Brain Institute, and it was kind of parallel. So for those who don't know me, I'm Heylighen. I'm the research professor here at the Vrije Universiteit Brussel and the director of the Global Brain Institute. So my talk is an attempt to bring together what I think are the main strands in this. Each of these strands I will have to cover pretty superficially. I hope that later in the discussion we will go into some more depth, and of course later in the years to come we hope to work quite deeply onto this new kind of paradigm for the future net. So what's the basic idea of this new paradigm? Well, let's go for a little bit of history. The development of the web. Originally, the World Wide Web was used basically for information, publishing and retrieval. That was the original idea of Tim Berners-Lee. But then in the 2000s we see that it becomes what is called Web 2.0. It's no longer used just to find information. It's used for people to interact and to produce their own information and to create some kind of what is then already called a peer-to-peer sharing of information. At the present, that peer-to-peer idea has moved from sharing information to actually sharing things, services, exchanging things. And we also see that the web is more and more being used by AI applications, of which Google is the most obvious example. So the web is becoming smarter and it's becoming more and more a model for the economy. So what I'm now going to speak about is what can we expect in the future. So in the future, we have this idea of the global brain, the whole point of our institute, which I will summarize in short. And also what we might call the collaborative commons, the idea that the sharing economy will merge into one giant public place where everybody can share with everybody. So the integrated vision, first in a nutshell, is that the web will become the equivalent of a central nervous system for humanity. What does it mean, a central nervous system? The central nervous system is what connects all the different organs and functions in the body, and that in the first place coordinates all of those different parts of the body, are sensitive to different things, are able to do different things. So all the perceptions and all the actions need to be coordinated, which in case of the web means that all the human and technological agents that are part of the web will need to collaborate in an efficient, coordinated way. Assuming that this will happen, that this coordination emerges and is efficient, then we should expect this emergent entity, this emergent mind to be able to tackle any challenges, individual challenges, individual people, local challenges, even global challenges. And in particular, we would expect these highly coordinated intelligent systems to be able to make a much more sustainable and efficient use of the available resources, and therefore move us from an economy of scarcity to an economy of abundance. Now, I have developed this utopian, this very optimistic scenario in more detail in a paper that I've called Return to Eden. I'm not going to speak about that. I'm just telling you, if you're interested in what the utopian influences are of that, there is more literature available. So, summarizing, what's the global brain? The global brain I define as a distributed mind or a distributed intelligence. What does it mean, distributed? It means that it's not localized in one place, it's distributed. There are little bits and pieces of it in all the different parts of the world, particularly in human individuals, software agents, hardware agents. By hardware agents, I basically mean all kind of machines that have some degree of intelligence or allow some degree of communication with the rest of the web. And of course, all these different agents to work together as a single mind and to be connected. That's basically the function of the internet. So all these agents, they are autonomous initially. That means each of them can perceive certain things and can act certain things. They act and perceive simultaneously in parallel. But we don't want them to just remain independent. We want them to coordinate because they need to solve these global problems. So the whole big question is how can such coordination be achieved? That's, if you want, is the core question of the whole workshop. To understand that better, I always start from what I call a cybernetic view of the mind. If we speak about the internet turning into a global brain, or a distributed mind, or a distributed intelligence, we first need to have an idea what does that mean, mind. Mind is often used in a kind of a mystical, philosophical sense, so I want to give a more pragmatic interpretation. And for me, a mind at least has three components. It has values, that means there are certain things it would like to achieve. It has certain goals, desires, preferences. It's not an inert piece of matter like a stone that just sits there. It wants to achieve certain things. It has certain perceptions, that means it should be able to assess what the present situation is. So it senses, it observes, it perceives. And finally, it will perform actions because it wants to reach its goals, its desires, its preferences. That means that it will need to act in order to change the present situation into the desired situation. So the actions of an intelligent agent of a mind are intended to bring the present situation closer to the desired situation. We can also interpret it as actions are intended to produce benefits, to produce value, to produce some kind of a measure of progress with respect to these values. Here is the scheme where the cybernetic view becomes clear. The scheme is a feedback loop. So let's start, for example, in the environment of the agent. Things happen, the situation changes. The things that happen, insofar that they are important for the agent, I will call them challenges. The system or the agent perceives those challenges. It processes the information it gets by perception. It processes it in particular in order to see how it matches or does not match with its values. And finally, it decides on an action so as to bring the perceived situation closer to the action. This action will generally improve the situation, but since there are always new challenges coming in, and since the system is never sure that it performs exactly the right action, there is a negative feedback loop. That means it needs to perceive again, and if the deviation between what it wants and what it sees is too large, it will perform a new action in order to constantly try to reduce the deviation between its values and its perceptions. So let me come to the important concept of a challenge. I define a challenge as a situation that elicits action. Why would a challenge, why would a situation elicit action? Because for the agent, acting would produce some benefit relative to inaction. Relative to inaction, that means that there are actually, simply put, two types of challenges. There are what I call opportunities, that means the situation as such is not bad, but there is an opportunity to make it even better, so it's a positive challenge. For example, I'm not particularly hungry, but I see that there at the end of the room there are some nice pastries, so that's an opportunity for me, and I know that if I feel like it, I can eat that pastry and feel even better than I felt before. So an opportunity in my new technology, in my new terminology, I'm starting to call an offer. Opportunity is something that offers you resources or potentially actions that may satisfy your desire. It's something that's there for the taking, but the taking still requires some action. You still need to act in order to exploit that opportunity to extract the benefit. A problem, on the other hand, is a negative challenge. That means a situation where you are definitely not happy with something is lacking compared to your default state, compared to your state that your default would like to be in, something is lacking. There is a deviation from your desired situation, or potentially there's a threat of a deviation. A danger is something that hasn't yet happened, but where you know that if you don't intervene, well, maybe the deviation will happen. So a problem can also be formulated as a demand. When the agent perceives a problem, it has a demand for something that will reduce this problem, that will eliminate this deficiency. So a demand for some resources or some action that will counteract this deviation. Now I come to the crucial aspect of my distributed mind, which is that it needs intelligence. So it has certain goals, certain preferences, certain desires. It can achieve these goals via actions, but it needs to select the right actions for the right situations. In complex situations, there are lots of things that could be done, and some of the things you could do are the wrong things that would make it worse. Some of the things you could do are the right things that will get you benefit. So the question is now selecting the right actions, and that requires intelligence. What are some of these components of the intelligence? Well, first of all, we need to gather information. That's what I call the perception function. But that information needs to be processed. We need to, step by step, infer from the things we observe, what do they mean, what are the implications, what is likely to happen in this situation. We also need to interpret it with respect to the values. That's a term that Vrije has introduced me, which I like very much. It's the sense making. You don't just mechanically register, let's say, that there is a tiger in front of you. You also need to make something for yourself, decide a tiger is a dangerous thing that could eat me and I don't want to be eaten, therefore I should do something to avoid that tiger. So the sense making is the interpretation of the perceived situation in terms of potential problems and opportunities. That means transforming neutral situations into subjective challenges. And finally, we will need to decide what are the most appropriate actions, which again is a highly non-trivial thing. If we do all these things, what we're actually doing is we're coordinating the offers, that means the situations that are opportunities, the demands, that means the situations that are problems, and the actions, which means the things that we ourselves are capable of doing. If all of these are coordinated into the right type of offer or the right type of demand elicits the right type of actions, then the agent will progress, will solve its problem, will fulfill its desires. Now I come to a classical way in cognitive science to represent this whole scheme of inference making. It's a very old scheme, but it's still very useful because it's so simple and so basic. It's called production rule. And the most basic production rule is called a condition action rule. I write it A leads to B, and that should be read as if condition A is present, present meaning that the system has somehow perceived or inferred that there is this condition, then the system should perform an action B. Simple example, I recognize a tiger, what is my action to flee? I see a banana, I eat it. I'm tired, I rest. It's kind of the simplest possible implementation of an intelligent agent. It's a bunch of these conditional action rules. It recognizes the situation, it immediately acts. More sophisticated agents will make a number of inferences, and inferences are called condition rules. That means if some condition X is present, then I can infer some other condition Y. For example, if I see a tiger, I can infer that it's dangerous. If I see a banana, I can infer that it's sweet. But maybe now there is some other inference rule that tells me that I'm on a diet and I should not eat sweet things. So maybe by making this additional inference, I come to the conclusion that actually I should not be eating the banana. I can also make more complicated inferences. If I see an animal that's warm-blooded, that lays eggs and that flies, then I can infer that it is a bird. So condition rules can in principle have all the logical rules of inference. A model of intelligence is a production system. That's a representation of the knowledge of some intelligent agent. And that consists of a network of production rules. Typically, many production rules containing many different conditions and many different actions that are possible, and these actions can be combined via logical operators, for which simplicity I just use the operator plus, which is a conjunction. B plus C gives D. If B is there and C is there, then also D will be there. So that allows me now to make inferences. In this particular example, assume that A is the case, that C is the case, and from A I can derive B. C is already the case. From B and C I can derive D. From D I can derive E plus F. From F plus B I could derive H, A, Y, but G isn't there, so the only thing I can infer are B, D, E, and F in this situation. That's the basic representation of a production system. In practice, there will be a number of extensions to make it more flexible. The rules, these condition action rules, they will typically have strengths or probabilities, meaning that in a given circumstances, different rules may be applicable, but some rules are stronger than others, and I will typically prefer the stronger rules because they are the ones that are more likely to give me the important conclusions. If I have a system that works in parallel, I can have all the rules fire at once, but in the aggregate results, I can weigh the contributions from the stronger rules heavier than the contributions from the weaker rules. If my rules have strength, I can use some kind of a learning algorithm. That's rules that are used appropriately, meaning that they give the right kind of result, they are reinforced. Vice versa, if the rule gives me a wrong kind of result, I weaken it. I can also have some kind of system that generates new rules, perhaps via a genetic algorithm, or maybe via some kind of a more complicated algorithm. But anyway, this whole production system can be made very flexible and can more or less achieve what a neural network brain at an abstract level does. So I want to just say this is a very abstract scheme, but it's very flexible. It can generally be used to describe intelligence. Now, I need to solve my problems, and I have solved my problems as basically matching offers, demands, and actions. These are my three elements: offers, positive opportunities, positive challenges; demands, negative challenges; actions, things I can do. I try to match them so that the problems get solved. There are some very simple heuristics, of which the simplest one is called backward chaining. You have a particular problem, you would like to get something, you have a particular demand. What do you need in order to satisfy that particular demand? In the previous example, I'm not going to go back to it, if you want to get F, from the production rules you can infer that either you need D, A, and C, or you need B and C, and then you can infer F. So if there is some action in your repertoire or some perception that tells you that these are the case, then you know that you can get F. Forward chaining is more or less the other way around. Instead of starting from what you would like to get, here you start from what you already have. You have a particular offer, you have perceived that certain things are the case, and now you can see what can I do with those things, what can I derive from those things. And then there are a whole bunch of combined methods which I must say I don't know in detail, Ben can tell us more about that, like constraint satisfaction, where you formulate that certain things should match certain other things and you try to make the whole thing match. So this is the process of inference, typically in a single intelligent agent, but I'm interested in a distributed mind, in the global brain. So what is a distributed mind? It's basically a network of agents. Each of these agents is capable of certain perceptions, is capable of performing certain actions, and is capable of performing certain inferences. That means that from its perceptions it can derive other conditions or other actions. So let's say that this agent X is basically a bunch of production rules. I can represent it abstractly as a bunch of production rules. So X is the thing that can transform A into B, that can derive C from B, and that can do a number of these productions. Now, if I have many agents, how do they collaborate? Well, very simply, by what I call propagating charges. So one agent X works on whatever condition it perceives. For example, X transforms A into B and B into C, and X stops there. X does not have any more knowledge or any more capabilities to go further than C. But now, X has created the condition C, and suppose now that there is a second agent Y that has access to a number of different production rules. So Y is, for example, capable of transforming C into something else and finally to transform it into D. And that's where the skills of Y stop. Y cannot do anything more than D, but now Z recognizes the situation D and says, aha, if there is Z, then I can do E and transform it into E. So like that, the output of one agent becomes a challenge for some next agent. And where the next agent is, can be either a network where challenges are propagated from one agent specifically to one other agent, or it can be a shared medium, and that's what I call stigmergy. There can just be a very big shared workspace in which all the outputs of all the agents are docked, and all the agents just then look for outputs that trigger them to do something with it. In society, this does happen. I have a problem, I start working on it, at a certain moment I get stuck, I ask my friend or colleague, and I say, can you continue here? And the colleague continues and says, yes, I can get to that point, but I need to know that. I will consult my friend who can help me with that, and like that, challenges propagate from person to person, typically along the lines in a social network, or along the lines in an organization. That's a slow and haphazard process. The internet now makes that much, in theory, much more efficient. First, the internet allows me to propagate challenges practically immediately, any place in the world. So I'm no longer limited to the few people I know in my neighborhood. It also makes sure that whatever information I put in there is accurately passed on, that no information gets lost on the way. If on the other hand I would ask a guy and he would ask somebody else and he would ask somebody else, by the end the question that I get an answer to may not be the question that actually I was asking. Moreover, the internet makes it possible to aggregate many different inputs from many different agents, and that's what we will discuss later in more detail, it makes them able to coordinate. So let's start with some example applications. Let's go first to this Web 1.0 that emerged in the 1990s. That was already a very big step forward because I could use email. If I now have a problem that I could only partially solve, I could just email whoever in the world that I thought would know the answer. Ask, I'm stuck here, can you tell me what's the next step? And I would get an answer almost immediately. A very big step forward to create working groups across the world. But instead of having to answer questions by checking an individual, most questions, or there are frequently asked questions, the answers are sooner or later collected in databases. Wikipedia is the best example. So we also got search engines. I would not need to send my question to a particular person. I would just ask it to the search engine and I would find the answer. That was already a very big step forward. But now we come in this stage that I have called the sharing economy. I'm not sure it's the best term, peer-to-peer, maybe another term. There are lots of terms floating around. But the whole idea is that I'm going to not only match questions and answers that means purely abstract challenges, but concrete things, goods and services. Some typical examples like what Uber or Lyft is doing is you have drivers willing to drive, you have passengers needing to be transported. The internet, via a good platform, can match the one with the other, make it more efficient. You have services like Airbnb or what was the other one? Couch surfing that match people who have a room that they don't need with people who need a room for a couple of days. You can do, of course, the same with people that need work to be done and people who are willing to do some work. You have crowdsourcing sites where lots of people do a little bit of work. You have freelancing sites where a particular person does one particular job. And then you have the traditional employment sites where people just look for long-term jobs. Another example yet is sharing possessions. For example, suppose that I have a few things that I rarely use, like a ladder, a lawnmower, and a drill. If I advertise on a community website, I can tell people, if you need a drill, come and fetch it. As long as I get it back within a day, I don't mind. But in return, I expect that whenever I need something, I can also come and fetch it. So Cardell will give us later a more concrete list of examples, so I'm not going to go into detail into the sharing economy. But as a general rule, in all economical systems, we see that one way to make them more efficient is called disintermediation, just more popularly known as cutting out the middleman. And that's best exemplified by an example. In the old days before the internet, if I was an author and I had written a manuscript and I wanted people to read the manuscript, I first had to send that manuscript to an editor. The editor then had to approve of it and decide to send it to a publisher. The publisher had to agree to sell it in large quantities and would send it to a printer. The printer would print it in many copies. Those many copies would have to be put in trucks, and they would have to be put also to bookshops, where finally, potentially, the reader might find my book in the bookshop. You know how it's now. I'm an author, I have a manuscript. I put it on the web, and the reader can just read it. All these middlemen have been cut out. What happens? I'm propagating challenges, but instead of propagating them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 until they reach a destination, I just propagate 1, 2. That means there's less loss of time, less loss of effort, less loss of resources, less friction, and there is more freedom and flexibility because all of these intermediates, they have certain constraints, like the editor may only like certain types of books, and the publisher may only want to publish books that have at least a certain number of copies, and the printer may not like to sell books that have too big size or have certain technical requirements, and the transporter may not be willing to transport unless there are at least 1,000 books in one batch, and the bookshop may not want to stock up books on certain topics that are not very popular in the neighborhood. So all of these middlemen would constrain what is passed through here. If my book is on the web and the reader is interested by the search on it, the reader will find my book and then read it. So that's basically the effect of the internet. The internet potentially minimizes the links in the chain, and because of that makes the system much more efficient. But to make this effective, what we really need is a universal protocol for passing on these challenges. And I'll start with a historical example. In the 1980s, we saw the first computer networks. These computer networks were sometimes called bulletin boards, sometimes local area networks. Sometimes there were big commercial providers like CompuServe and America Online. Sometimes there were academic networks like BitNet. And what they had in common is that they were all different and they were not connected, or if they were connected via such complicated bridges that it was basically impossible to get a file from one network to any other network. So we had a proliferation of private, disconnected computer networks. So what happened in the 1990s is that the internet was heralded as the internet, the network of networks. It was interconnecting all the networks. And it could do this because it had this very simple and elegant and robust TCP/IP protocol. What happened is that all these private networks, either they switched to TCP/IP themselves, thus became part of the internet, or they just disappeared because nobody wanted to use them anymore. There was so much more to be found on the internet. So if we look at the present situation, we are kind of a similar situation. We see that there are hundreds, if not thousands, of sharing platforms, some big commercial ones like Amazon or Apple or eBay, some very local ones just for a community of people living in a particular state or in a particular startup, some specialized in matching drivers with cars, some specialized in matching rooms with people, some specialized in matching people wanting to teach with people wanting to get courses. So it's again one big mess. It's one proliferation of disconnected sharing networks. So what can we expect for the future? That sooner or later all these sharing platforms will merge into one big, what we might call collaborative commons. One sharing space where any offer can potentially satisfy any demand. But for that, of course, we need to develop the equivalent of the TCP/IP protocol. We need to develop a universal sharing protocol. And my idea here of the offer network is the first conceptual analysis of what this universal sharing protocol could look like. There is one more mediator. I have said we try to cut out the middleman. We try to cut out intermediate steps. In our present economy, there is one huge middleman, which is money. All transactions, or practically all transactions in our present economy, it's not that you want something, you give something instead. No, you want something, you give money, and that money is then used to buy something else. That's very flexible, but we'll see it has some disadvantages. One of the flexible things is the famous invisible hand. What's an invisible hand? It's a principle of self-organization that organizes the economy in a distributed way. It's not centralized. You don't need a central planning bureau like in the old Soviet Union to make sure that supply and demand get coordinated. How does it work? Very simply, it's called the price mechanism. Suppose that of a certain goods there is not enough available to satisfy the demand. So the demand increases relative to the price, relative to the supply. That means that the price of that good will go up. If the price goes up, the suppliers will receive more money, therefore they will be motivated to produce more of that thing that is in demand, so they will increase the supply. If the supply is increased, the demand will be satisfied, so the demand will decrease, and typically the price will also decrease. So we have a negative feedback loop, which keeps supply and demand more or less in balance. So it's a very neat, self-organizing system, and that's why all the economists are in love with this system. However, that system works only if there is something to calculate the price. For the price mechanism to work, you need to have an objective number that goes up and down, so that you know if the price goes up, you should try to supply more. If the price goes down, it means you're supplying too much, you should decrease your supply. And that price requires some kind of a universal currency, namely money. Now, there are quite a number of shortcomings of money. I'm not going to go into detail, but the most fundamental one we might say is that an intelligent agent cares for values, things that are important. There are plenty of important, valuable things that cannot be expressed in money because they cannot be expressed in quantities, they cannot be quantified, because there is no good way to measure them. There are a whole bunch of reasons why things like friendship, sustainability, democracy, beauty, love, community cannot be expressed in money. If they cannot be expressed in money, it means they cannot be important. So it means that the invisible hand will not make sure that these values are being supplied if they are lacking. So the invisible hand basically ignores what we might say most of the most important things. There's a second, better known shortcoming of money, that is that there is a positive feedback now. The positive feedback, which is also called the Matthew effect, which is that the rich tend to get richer. The principle is very simple. If you have a lot of money, you can invest that money into all kinds of things, into stocks, into properties, into startup ventures. And if you have enough money, you're practically bound that this money will increase. If you put all your money into one particular venture that fails, you can lose your money. If you have enough money, you can spend it over enough ventures so that the probability that all of them fail is practically zero. So in practice, as Piketty has shown, the more money you have to invest, the more money you will make. On the other hand, if you're poor and you don't have much money, and you get into trouble, for example, you lose your job, you get ill, you have an accident with your car, suddenly you're in need of money, but you don't have enough, so you need to borrow money, you get in debt. But debt means that it costs you more. So here now we have the opposite effect. Instead of getting more money, you get less and less money, because the more debt you have to pay, the less money you are left. There's a second positive feedback with money, which is a positive feedback of speculation. Speculation means that you buy things not because they have an intrinsic value, but because you expect them to increase in monetary value, not in your real value, but in pure money value. But if people buy things when they expect their price to increase, what you're actually doing is you're increasing the demand, and that means that you make the prices go up. So here we have a positive feedback of prices going up, leading to prices going up, and that cannot go on forever. So you have the typical booms followed by the busts that we have in the capitalist economy, leading, for example, to financial crisis. So now I come to this idea of the offer networks, which is a general system based on artificial intelligence and the internet for matching offer and demand without the intermediate of money. That was the original proposal of Ben. So what is Ben's idea? The users of the system specify to the system what they are willing to offer under what conditions. And we formalize it as production rules. So for a simple example, suppose that I'm willing to take somebody in my car, but I need a room at the end of the journey, so I'm offering a ride on condition of getting a room. So that's a conditioned action rule, which I can write as, if I get a room, then I will propose a ride. Or in my simple notation, room leads to ride. Now, if lots of people put in all their offers, their demands, their conditions, I get this huge production system. I know I have these AI algorithms that will try to match optimally all the offers and demands. And hopefully, that means that most of the demands can be fulfilled. And because it's one big system, I don't have to have a one-to-one exchange. For example, I need a room, and I'm willing to give a ride. It's unlikely that I find a person who has just the opposite requirement, that he needs a ride and he has a room. that's a typical problem with barter. If you exchange one thing for another, you need to find one person who just to complement the offers and demands. So a barter economy is not very efficient. So what's the solution of that? That different people have different demands, and in the whole system, and here I have made the system very simple because I include only 3 people. Suppose I have John, who is willing to offer some apples that he doesn't need, but he would like to have a bread. I have Ben, who is willing to offer some bread, but he wants some eggs. I have Kathy, who wants some apples, and who's willing to offer some eggs. Now, if I would try to do a one-to-one exchange, John and Ben are not complementary, because John offers something that Ben doesn't care for. John wants something that Ben is willing to offer, but he cannot give anything in return to Ben because Ben is not interested in apples. What the system will do, it will do the equivalent of closing the loop. In fact, everybody can be satisfied because there are apples in the systems which Kathy wants, there are bread in the system which John wants, there is eggs in the system which Ben wants, and all of them are willing to offer them. So in theory the system could match everything. This is a very simple example, but imagine this applied to 5,000 people that all have different offers and demands. So that's the basic idea of Ben. If he has, if I have understood that, yes.
Is it equivalent to finding organization in chemical organization theory?
That's one of the unsolved problems, I would say.
I think it isn't. I mean,
in some respects it's simple, in other respects it's not. So we still are trying to find whether there is some kind of projection of the one.
My guess, which is not substantiated by doing the math, is that the chemical organization theory is sort of like a high-level, mean field-ish approximation to this, and that this would be more like what individual chemical molecules in a non-melt, well-mixed fluid or something. Because here we're dealing with specific constraints to do with there being a finite supply of each thing. So you have to sort of choose which gets matched and which doesn't get matched, because you have a finite supply of offers to do each thing. Whereas chemical organization theory, it's more like a real number thing. You have infinitely divisible quantities of each thing. So that I see a rough analogy between chemistry where you're counting the number of molecules versus like a well-mixed chemistry where you just figure everything is floating around. So in some ways, chemical organization theory bypasses the combinatorial optimization problem in matching offers and requests. So maybe you could use it to study the dynamics of a very large offer network in the large scale within some constraints on what the approximation would tell you, which we don't know yet. Or, I mean, you have to introduce non-linearities of a sort that aren't there in the standard chemical organization theory to really get it in detail.
Still, there's the computational chemistry techniques where you have small systems, not necessarily review.
Yeah.
And this is pretty much the same.
Right.
The difference is that in chemistry you have a discrete function. So you have an utility function that controls and drives the system. Even if it's out of equilibrium, there is a utility function. But I don't see here an easy way to formalize a utility function.
Well, the utility function is implicit in the directions of the production rules. And in chemical organization theory, you would use reaction rates, which would correspond to the state of production rules. So some production rules will be stronger than others, meaning that you might prefer this exchange to that exchange. You're willing to do this exchange if nothing but is available, but maybe Ben does not really want X, but would really like a toy robot, but he will settle for X if he can't get anything better. So in that sense, it could be included.
I mean, when we formalize this satisfactory problem in terms of Boolean satisfaction in a draft that Zara and I wrote, I mean, the objective function for that optimization is basically how satisfied is each person, like how costly to them are the things they're doing, are beneficial to them are the things that they're getting. So you can formalize an overall objective function.
I mean, of course, you can formalize everything. The thing is that can you really do something with that? I mean, basically, you have the free energy, you have the gender line functions which are easy to manipulate. Well, if they're not easy to manipulate, when it's time dependent and very complex. Time dependent and complex. So if you take out that time and complexity, fine. For chemistry and for that. So the analysis, formal analysis.
I mean, what we tried to do was just formalize it as a satisfaction problem. So given a bunch of people with offers and requests, you could solve it and find a good match, right? Now, that's more computer science formalization. You know? If you're trying to do analytical calculations about the system, I don't know how that's we didn't try that.
Solve it as in find conditions for equilibrium or non-equilibrium or circumvention or that, or just running the solution.
Yeah, just well.
Well, so last we discussed the formalization part.
Yeah, I'll talk about that in my talk.
Another simple example, what I call decomposing demands. My demand is that I want live piano music at my party, so I'm willing to offer a party, but I would like somebody else to provide live piano music. The system will have some production rules that tells me that in order to have live piano music, you will need to have at least a pianist and a piano at the party. But in order to get a piano at the party, there's another production rule that tells me I need to have a piano, a truck to move the piano, and a mover. So my demand can be satisfied by finding offers for pianist, piano, truck, mover. Let's assume that these people are willing to provide pianist, piano, truck, and mover on the condition that they can all join the party. So let's assume these are all people coming to the party, and in return for that, the one is willing to play, the other one is willing to lend out his piano, the third one is willing to lend out his truck, and the fourth one is willing to help moving. So here is a decomposition. I start, let's say, from a bigger project, and I decompose it into different offers and different people, and you can see where this is going to get. My big demand could be, I want to build a school in an African village. For that I need builders and building materials and electricians and so on, and I can in theory decompose a demand into lots of very many specific demands and then try to find offers for each of these specific demands. But now I come to what I saw as a major limitation of Dan's original idea. I'm sure he will not disagree with my solution, but he may not have been very much aware of the problem that is there. So the offer network is like an extended barter economy. Offers are exchanged for demands, but even while you do not need to find one person to match exactly with one person, you still have to find somewhere an offer that matches with your demand, and if somewhere in the whole system there is one offer lacking, you cannot close the loop. There is a gap in the whole system, and the whole system may fall apart. So in the case of my party example, so suppose I have found a pianist, and I have found somebody willing to lend out the piano, and I found somebody willing to move, but the guy with the truck can't come to the party, and his condition is that, well, I will not lend out my truck if I can't have a party in return, so my condition is that I participate in the party. The whole deal collapses. It's a simple example, but you can imagine that in more complex things, it is likely that some gap like that will appear, and because of that, a big problem will not be solved. So, what's the solution? That is that if we go back in history, we saw that before the invention of money, it's not like most people thought that exchanges happened to barter. Exchanges actually happened to gifts. And also, now in reality, in this example of a party, I asked my friend who owns a truck, can I lend your truck? And the truck guy says, yeah, I would have liked to come to the party, I can't, but since you're my friend, I trust you, I'll lend you my truck. That's what happens, let's say, in informal arrangements. And that is what happened before markets in small communities that didn't have money. Exchanges did not occur to barter, but to gifts. And what is a gift? It means that if somebody has some surplus resources that he doesn't need, instead of hoarding them, he just gives them to somebody else that needs them. And why would he do that? Because he knows that sooner or later when he needs something, somebody else will give it to him. So everybody benefits by giving away the things they don't need. So that makes the whole thing much more flexible because I don't need to match every particular offer with a particular demand. There will be plenty of unconditional offers that kind of lubricate the system, that can create a buffer or a slack that makes the whole system work better. Now, the common objection to a gift economy is that yes, that if people give away things for free, what stops this from being abused? A free rider is somebody who profits from the system but doesn't give anything in return. So what stops a gift economy from being exploited by free riders? Well, that is avoided by reputation mechanism. In a small community, everybody knows everybody, everybody knows who has been giving, who has been receiving. The one who gives a lot will gain reputation, and people with good reputation will be the first people who will receive something in case they need something. So people are motivated to gain reputation by giving, because it knows it just makes their life easier. On the other hand, somebody who receives without doing anything in return will lose reputation. And if your reputation goes down and down, at a certain moment it becomes so low that people will not give you anything anymore. Which means that basically you're excluded from the community, and that's what happens to a free rider. In a gift economy, free riders basically get excluded from the community, which for them is much worse than just participating in the community. Now, in a gift economy, there are always exceptions. That means people who are unable to reciprocate because they are children, or too old, or too ill, they will receive more than they can reciprocate because people know that they are not free riders. So, what do I suggest to make the whole offer network much more viable? To just inject some surplus in these unconditional offers that are just available to fill any gaps that might otherwise appear in these groups. So, and where do these surplus offers come from? Well, actually, there are plenty of things that can be given in our present society. To start with, we all have lots of things that we don't really need. We all have old bicycles and clothes we don't wear anymore, and children's toys and books that we have already read. We have plenty of things that we no longer need. There's a second thing that most of the economy nowadays is about information, and information is so-called non-rival. That means you can give it and keep it at the same time. There's nothing whatsoever to stop me from giving all the information I have, and that's what people do when they put all the papers on the web. They're giving for free their information. Finally, there is an instinct, I might say, of altruism and friendship, which is that people actually like to make donations and to do volunteer work. It's not something that needs to be particularly imposed on people. We see plenty of examples that people donate to good causes. And finally, if these reputation systems would become more effective, better spread, we would see that they would motivate people to give. That's what companies, for example, do. They want to increase their reputation, so they say, we are subsidizing this school in an African village with the proceeds of the coffee we are selling. It's a very effective method to make people give. In the longer term, we know that technological innovation will more and more create abundance by things like robots, 3D printers, nanotechnology, etc. We have discussed it earlier, I'm not going to get into details, but in the longer term, there will be abundant offer, so problems of scarcity basically will disappear. However, there is another problem, which is that we still have this rich getting richer positive feedback. On the other hand, because of the increase in technology, lots of people will lose their jobs to computers and robots. Because as machines become more efficient, lower level jobs or even middle level jobs will simply be replaced, and under the present capitalist system, somebody who does not have a job, does not have any income, and therefore will become poor. So there is a serious risk at the moment that we will create an underclass of permanently poor because of this rich getting richer dynamics, which is accelerated by the internet, by the way.
And then we have communist revolution.
So what is my solution? It's not yet a communist. It's not yet a communist revolution. It is if this previous dynamics of generating surplus, or what I call unconditional offer, into the offer network, in theory, we can rebalance this. Yeah.
So one thing we were remembering as soon as we saw you present this is when we were prototyping an attempted implementation of offer networks for exchanging of book reviews and music reviews, which we never finished building, but actually in the context of that implementation, we found ourselves introducing basically the same idea, because it's like, how do you get this thing started, actually? So while that wasn't in the paper, we independently came to the same conclusion, thinking about really making it work. And
I'm surprised that you came to the same conclusion.
Yeah. The way we were thinking to do it there was like, when you're a newbie who's just coming into the network, then you have no reputation, and no one's going to be willing to trust you to do anything. So you would have to do some unconditional stuff just to show that you can write decent reviews or deliver on whatever it is you're doing. Then your reputation points get boosted up higher. Then once you have a higher reputation point, then you're swankier and you're more likely to have people want to do exchanges.
Even then, allowing gifts does supplement the dynamics. It seems like it smooths transactions out sometimes.
Exactly, that's an idea. But I hadn't thought about a newbie idea indeed as a newbie. But on the other hand, as a newbie, you would need to be sufficiently motivated that you really want to join the system.
Well,
as a newbie, it would be logical that we indeed put in some gifts just to start off.
If there's a bunch of big shots in there already, right? Then as a newbie, you're it's like apprenticeship before you get to really join, right? But it's
the other thing we're thinking of was if you have many people coordinating and it's matching, one person drops out, then someone's offer might be able to be seen as a gift to smooth things over, possibly.
I like to pick in on that because
the exchange becomes a gift because the jerk on the other end didn't do the thing back for you, right? But then you get an extra boost of goodie points because you ended up inadvertently giving a gift.
Well, what I see with, if I just apply this to some open source projects, where you also have like the big shots already there, and if you look there how newbies come in, it's often with new ideas, fresh looks, things looking out of the usual. So even if you have nothing, you have something to offer, a fresh look at a new perspective. So I don't really see a big problem for newbies getting into the system.
The only problem is if you start with really poor people who don't have anything to offer yet, you don't want to exclude them either. So there should be, what Jean-François is speaking about, you have kind of like negative credit, that you should be able to take things out of it, and it kind of temporarily diminishes your reputation, but as long as it doesn't go too low, you can take quite a lot of things out of the system.
You can organize around that, like there are this apprentice where you can find mentors and stuff like that, so you can actually just implement them in the organization.
Yeah, I mean, to take your open source example, what we tend to do, if you have an inexperienced person who actually doesn't have that many great new ideas to offer, we get a lot of Indian undergrads for OpenCog. We just tell them, like, here's the bug list, like, they fix some of these bugs, upload a patch. Once you've done that a couple times, we'll believe you know how to program, and then we're willing to hold your hand through the more complicated stuff. So that would be a case more like we're discussing if a newbie just does something to boost his reputation, so that then they're full-fledged part of the network.
But there should also be a provision for people who simply cannot reciprocate. Like there are people who simply are too poor, too uneducated, and that's what I suggest.
You might say something like
the universal basic offer. That's kind of a variation on the universal basic income. That in the future, we should make sure that basic needs are kind of provided in the network, but the network keeps track of how much you take out of it. So, like the food that's now being thrown away by supermarkets, but now they have a law that they can't throw it away. It could go into a system like this.
That's near the Eden phase, though, right? I mean, in the early stage,
it's not the Eden phase, it's kind of the intermediate phase. It's not the immediate phase now, but there is a phase like, as I said, in France, supermarkets cannot throw away food. They should bring it to some kind of a food bank, and that food bank could be part of this.
In Africa, they don't. They throw the food on the street, and people root through the garbage and eat it. So
that's
a technological solution.
But I guess what I'm thinking is, in the early stage, if you were creating an offer network,
that's a silly thing to say about the whole of Africa, by the way.
What's that?
That was just a silly thing to say about the whole of Africa.
Yeah, sure. Well, I've been in Ethiopia for a month, but this is the case in the streets of Addis Ababa, where I visited. Of course, it's not true in Cape Town or Rabat or somewhere above it. Yeah. But I guess in the early stage, if you're starting an offer network like next year or something, you probably couldn't give too much of a universal basic offer.
That I agree. I mean, now I'm starting to get in the utopian part, so my next slides are kind of the more utopian part. So, tackling externalities, that's another typical problem with money, that is that monetary transactions only take into account the effect between the two parties in a transaction. They ignore effects on third parties, like pollution, typical example of a negative externality. Education, typically an example of a positive externality. Within the invisible hand, there is nothing to deal with these externalities, so typically they are dealt with by the government by taxing negative externalities, subsidizing positive ones. So can we do better than this kind of government intervention? Externalities can in theory be formulated as challenges, positive ones as offers, negative ones as demands. Within the larger system, those things too should find people willing to take on these challenges, and the people who do take on these challenges by, for example, exploiting positive externalities or combating negative externalities, those people should be rewarded by the system, maybe directly via some kind of a conditional action rule or simply by the reputation mechanism. The advantage of the system is that because you can formulate offers and demands that are not monetary offers and demands, you can reward people for example, reducing pollution or providing free education even without money. A similar problem for sustainability. Why would an offer network make the world much more sufficient? To start with, the whole coordination exercise is meant to make everything much more efficient. The less middleman you have, the less stages your offer has to move to before it reaches the one that needs it, the less you will dissipate energy and resources. You will also consume less, because you will not need to buy all kinds of stuff that can be shared by the network. That's this example of the drill. I have bought a drill a long time ago. I use it maybe once a year. In the meantime, I have loaned it out to Weaver here and to Victoras and to whoever may need it. That means that we can simply do with much less consumption. Finally, the offer network should promote recycling in the sense that what we normally consider waste, things we no longer need and tend to throw away, in a sense can be seen as an offer searching for a demand. And it's not obvious for something that at first time looks like waste to find a matching demand, but with an intelligent production system like we are envisaging here, it seems likely that you're much more likely to find somewhere after many steps of production and inferences and contacting with many different agents, you will find somewhere an agent that is actually willing to take on your waste and do something with it. So eventually the hope is that all the loops in the network should be closed and that we would create the equivalent of the famous chemical organization about which we still have the debate in how far it's applicable to this or not, but at least chemical organization so that in theory it is possible to create systems that are completely recycling. Promoting resilience, what's the biggest problem at the moment? That we are all networked, which means that we are vulnerable to cascading failure. If something goes wrong in one part of the network, that problem tends to propagate to the rest of the network. And typical examples are the financial collapse where one bank went broke because of that other banks went broke, because of that other banks went broke. Or electricity blackouts, one line gets overloaded, because of that more electricity goes over a different line which also gets overloaded, etc. So how can offer networks reduce these kind of problems? They make the system less fragile. To start with, they will increase the surplus of offer, meaning there will always be more in the system than you need. So whenever there is suddenly a great demand, let's say a disaster, an earthquake, there will be plenty of offer available that can immediately move find the most efficient way to this earthquake region. It will increase the diversity of offers and the diversity of ways to which offers can travel to demands. That means if some particular offer for whatever reason does not function, say you have an offer of laptops that all have the same virus, well, the system will provide probably many more different laptops that can be shipped via different routes so that you can still get what you need. It will also increase the redundancy of the ways to satisfy demand. So if you can't get it from this provider, there will be millions of other potential suppliers with some offer that could potentially repeat. And finally, it will reduce these positive feedbacks that are associated with money, the positive feedbacks of speculation and the rich getting richer, which typically leads to instability, volatility, and financial collapses. I'll come to my last few slides, which are the ones that we will need to discuss, I hope, during the rest of the workshop, which are the implementation issues. How can we realize this vision? So, I'm not naive. Building a universal offer network with all of these beautiful properties will take a lot of time and effort, and I would guess at least 2 decades for full implementation. But on the other hand, the way it's formulated, it can be started right away in small-scale experiments. So what I hope will come out of this is that we agree about setting up some of these small-scale experiments with a small-scale community. One community I talked about would be here, the university campus, all the students and personnel of the VUB would publicize their offers and demands in such a system, and the exchanges would take place, on example. Now, if these small-scale experiments would be successful, we would learn a lot. We would definitely find out that lots of things don't work the way we thought they would work, and we will also get new ideas that make things work even better than we thought they would work. So by experimenting with that, we will hopefully build something that becomes more and more successful, and then it can start to expand. And why would it expand? Because of what I have called this disintermediation dynamics. Instead of having all these different silos that are difficult to connect from one to the other, we are building the equivalent of TCP/IP, the internet that interconnects all the existing sharing networks. And why would a private sharing network like Apple's want to join this? Because if they see that the other one is getting too big, they cannot afford to ignore it, because people will always migrate to the thing that offers them the most for the least investment. If they offer similar things as offer network but for a higher price, well, They won't be able to afford that. So the hope is that if these prototype networks become successful enough and they go, eventually they will absorb all the rest of the sharing economy. That's of course a futuristic vision, let's say, for in 20 years or so. So technical requirements, what needs to be done? Well, we need to build what is, or build or use what is called in AI an ontology. An ontology is a system of conceptual categories. That means that you need to have labels that everybody agrees about. If you want a bike, you will not just say, I want a bike, you will need to specify some aspects by which you can distinguish the kind of bike you want from other bikes. You will then have to specify it should be a racing bike, it should be in aluminium, it should have a light. Some of the things you may want to specify in detail, some of the things you don't care, it could be any bike, but you will anyway need an ontology, and the ontology should be inbuilt in the system so that you start maybe by explaining your demand in natural language, and a natural language interpreter will map your informal description to its existing categories and suggest to you, do you mean this type of bike? Do you require this? You haven't specified how old the bike would be. Should it be a new bike, or are you also willing to take an old bike? Like that, the interface try to map your initially very intuitive demands onto as precise as possible categories, because these categories then form the hard constraints that must be satisfied, because then the system will go and look in its database to some offer that matches precisely those constraints. Of course, if you don't have very hard constraints, it's better not to put them, because the harder your constraints, the less probability that you will find some. If you specify a very specific type of bike you're looking for, you're less likely to find it than if you just specify any kind of bike. Then there are what I call soft constraints, or what's then called soft constraints, but I like the term. These are criteria by which you could say this offer is better than this one. They're both acceptable, but maybe this fits my tastes or my requirements a little bit better than the other. And one of the ways to do that is something that is very much used and very effective at the moment. It's a recommendation system. That's the kind of system that if you go to Amazon and it sees that you have looked at a couple of books, it will immediately start recommending other books and tell you you're likely to find this interesting as well. If you would use an ontology and you want to say, I want to read an interesting book, then you would need to use the Amazon ontology, which would say something like non-fiction, science, physics, cosmology. And then you say, yeah, but it does not necessarily need to be cosmology, and maybe what I'm more after is some kind of a hard science fiction that plays with the origin of the universe that doesn't exist in the ontology, but if you know a few books that you like, the system probably will suggest to you a book that is enough similar that you would say, ah yeah, I like that as well. We will need to build a production system with small inference capabilities. It means that first of all we will need to make this universal format for what are the rules, production rules. I sketched one possible format and it's probably much too simple. And then we will need to find some algorithms to find the good matches. And one suggestion I liked was made by Florian Kleedorf, who is a guy that is likely to collaborate with me, but unfortunately couldn't be here. He built kind of a beginning of a system that he calls a web of needs. And he suggests that there will be lots of intelligent agents that go and search to the network to find matches, and these agents would kind of compete with each other. So maybe your agents might make slightly different decisions than your agents. In the first stage, it's probably a good idea to have lots of different approaches, all working on the same network. But what we do need to have is a universal format for those, because otherwise the different agents will not be able to see whether what you're offering is really the same thing as what they're looking for. We will need learning algorithms. Some of the ontological categories are already existing or are already being built. In the semantic and the web community, there has been quite an effort in building ontologies, but it's kind of an endless game in the sense that there are always new types of things appearing. So learning algorithms may be able to cluster things together and induce ontological categories. Learning algorithms are also necessary to make recommendations better. And more sophisticated learning algorithms may actually produce better production rules, telling you that if you want to do this, let's say you want to build this school in an African village, then I have learned from previous people who did previous things that you will need to make sure that you have this and this and this and this in this and this particular organization. So a system that really can learn this kind of general production rules would of course be extremely useful, and then we are really getting into global brain territory. Then we're getting into a system that's not just matching the things you put in there, but it's actually analyzing them intelligently and making intelligent recommendations on how to solve them. We will also need a reputation system to keep track of positive and negative contributions. We should be careful about privacy. We don't want everybody to be able to see how many reputation points you have gotten on this or that. It's probably best to have kind of local reputation so that you have a high reputation in programming Java, but a local reputation in selling hard liquor. All of these things will need to be adapted. There are quite some social things there that are not obvious. But at the very least, we want to make sure that people with a high reputation get some benefit out of it so that they are motivated to increase their reputation and that abuse is minimized. So finally, the conclusion. What I have proposed is a new vision of the global brain. The global brain is no longer seen as a system for exchanging information. It's also seen as a system for coordinating perceptions, desires, and actions. And by perceptions, desires, and actions, I also mean very concrete offers of goods or services. Things people actually do, things people actually need, things people actually have to give. If I want to get rid of this pullover, I should be able to throw it into the offer network, and whoever is interested in this kind of pullover should immediately be warned that that pullover is available.
You know damn well no one wants that pullover.
In which case, the next option would be, what's the most efficient way to recycle this pullover? What kind of wool is it made of? Can it still be used for some other purpose? So, the global brain is now seen as a system for efficiently matching all the offers and demands of all the agents using a distributed system of production rules or learning system. And that would be an extension and integration of all the sharing platforms which at this moment are popping up all over the planet. If such a universal sharing platform, intelligent platform would be formed, then I think I have made my point that it should help eliminate many problems of society. In particular, waste, it would make things much more efficient. Unsustainability, it would promote recycling and stop undue consumption. Would make the economy and the social system much less fragile. It would reduce inequality, poverty, scarcity, and all the problem of externalities and values that cannot be expressed in money. So that's the vision in a nutshell, and I hope we'll discuss it in more detail in the further talks. We actually didn't go to the chairman. What is the schedule now? Should we go to the next
It's 11:30.
And when is the next one?
Time, not the schedule.
No.
Now it's
short discussion after each talk.
we were supposed to have a half an hour discussion after 1 hour talk, but this was kind of 1.5 hours.
Also, let's have a 15-minute discussion on the next week.
So
I think we can, in the afternoon, we have quite some leeway, so we can, if necessary, move the talk to the afternoon.
I wanted to add something that when you're talking about sharing the drill, there is actually a tendency in what they call the service innovation and service whatever, that many of these, instead of like selling drills, they actually want to lease drills to people. And there are some pretty interesting cases we could actually have a look at on how they are applying that at the moment. It's been around for more than 10 years, and there are pretty some cases where it works. So they are not. So you don't buy the drill anymore. You buy the usage of the drill for life.
There are a lot of variations on this scheme, and that's why it's good. And I think Adele has started to do it, to make a kind of a survey of all the different formulas in the sharing economy. I don't think that any of them is optimal. I think that the offer network should accommodate as many as possible of them. While the original idea of Ben was to do it without money, at least in the first stages, I think money will still be in there. So money is, after all, just an offer and demand that can be put in the system. If some people insist on getting a certain amount of money, they should be able to put it in the system. But if they can see that they can get the same or get what they want in an even better way, they may after a while forget about putting in the money requirements. So the leasing is one kind of way where you still use a little bit of money, but it's already much more effective than buying the.
I'm just wondering if we go and look into that work, if you could actually get something out of it to know about the alternative. I'm not sure, but it seems to be parallel.
One comment about, let's say, economy and economical perspective that you're given. I'm wondering why this match should be 100%. Real life is not like that. So within economy, you will always have a dropouts, unsatisfied needs, because there is a lack of production, I think. I mean, if I would be you, I would change that to a conceptual perspective, because this is the reality. So 100% match will probably not be.
Well, no, I don't think private should be 100% match, but I think that the match probably could become much bigger than it is now.
Okay, then, but
100% will never be the case.
I would leave space for non, and maybe elaborate for non-matched needs,
Yeah.
Well, I mean, this is sort of why the idea of hard and soft constraints in terms of matching. So I mean, if I'm asking for food, I'm really not going to be happy if someone gives me a brick or a book or something, right? But yeah, I might be happy to accept some type of food that doesn't please me as much as the food I would optimally get. And that partly will come down to people's usage of such a system. If people, I mean, you would, unless there's a humongous number of people offering stuff, if you ask for something very, very exact, you're just not going to get it, and then you will learn not to do that, and you'll loosen up your constraints a bit and see what you actually can get. And so you can imagine smart interfaces ultimately that would first we'll ask for this thing and see how the world reacts. Then when I don't get it, I'll kind of relax things a bit, and then eventually you see what can get a response. I think there's going to be a lot of ways to slice that. But yeah, there's also differences between, say, early stage specialized offer network implementations that might be created versus part of the vision Francis is sketching is like the whole solar system as an offer network, right? And then that's there.
The God phase of the offer. I think this is exactly the point what I'm addressing is, if you work on the conceptual, which Francis is doing, and you're thinking you're flat. The conceptual, let's say, work should be opened, broad, and then obviously the application part will go, step by step, and with searching and before you come to the implementation.
Yeah, I mean, part of the reason for exploring more limited implementations is just to develop tools that could be used to build something like this out more broadly. Because if there is a universal offer network, that's not going to be built by any one vendor or any one research organization, right? Any more than the money economy was.
This would be false. This would be false proposition. I mean, you should allow multiple agents, multiple, etc.
Well, yeah.
That's life like it is.
We're in no position to allow or stop it, right? Since no one governs the whole system, but you can inject ideas and tools into it that hopefully will grow, and then the system will sort of.
It's quite likely that somebody else, that us will buy this, but that they will get some inspiration from our reasoning about it.
I would like to point to 2 points of critique about the presentation. The first one has to do with the dimension of time.
Space-time.
Yes, space-time. Yes, the method, economy works in time, and for example, you spoke about eliminating speculation. But if I want, as an agent, if I want to maximize value, I would always have the question whether I should demand my 3 eggs right now, or should I just delay my gratification in order to give less for more. And in the same manner about offers, not only about demand. So I find the dimension of time in the offer networks missing. Because agents will make considerations when to offer or when to demand something according to the dynamics of the whole network. And if the dynamics will be transparent to everybody, it will become much more complicated than something that looks timeless. Yes, you have condition rules that do not specify any access to the dimension of time. This is one point. The second point is about something that was just mentioned. Maybe it will, I believe it will be returning theme is the reputation systems, and I think reputation systems are bound to have the same weaknesses that money has, because somebody that will get a lot of reputation will become richer in reputation, and somebody who will be just starting might be in a position never to gain enough reputation to have real involvement in this economy of offers. So we need to think how to come up with a reputation system that will not have this kind of weaknesses. So just to point that.
Well, the comment about time is well taken. It's true that I haven't thought about it because the paradigm of production systems is an artificial intelligence paradigm, which is typically a paradigm of logical reasoning. So it doesn't have the time dimension. But I think you can introduce a time dimension via the soft constraints, in the sense that there will always be generally more than one part to get your demand fulfilled, and that you can specify an urgency in there so that it tries to find the quickest way to. Suppose that you're looking for a second-hand book, and the system finds 2 possibilities. One that's just next to you, you can fetch it right away, but it costs $100, or one that comes from Australia and the guy's willing to send it to you for $50. Then you have to decide, do I want it now for a higher price, or then for a lower price. These will be soft constraints which your personal agent should somehow learn from you.
Yeah, but also in this, if you introduce this, speculation will be unavoidable. You will have as much speculation as you have in the current status of
I don't think so, because the speculation assumes that you are
future and past values. It's just manipulating future values. This is what is speculation about, if I oversimplify.
Yeah, but I think the problem with money is that you can reduce all value to money. Well, the value of a book to you you can only speculate in the book if you want to exchange it for money. It's much more difficult to speculate the value of the book in the idea. So if I get this book now, then maybe I might get in return this rare painting, which by that time might have, because much more difficult to speculate. And I don't say it's impossible, but because there is not this linear accumulating measure of values, because much more difficult to speculate about values, because the values are no longer linear. They're no longer one-dimensional. They're very subjective, yes. Very local.
Yeah, I agree. But suppose I want to now to make a workshop and to produce 100 bicycles of special design that I came up with. And now I have all the resources, and I know what are the resources that are required, so I can register demands into the offer networks. But then I have to somehow produce the bicycles, and we want to offer them in the future when they will be ready to the network as well. But there is a gap of time between collecting all the resources and offering the final products. In this gap of time, the value of bicycles can change. There will be more demand, less demand. So naturally, I will have to make some kind of predictions whether the whole thing is valuable for me. I'm just introducing this just simple economical activities that people do all the time.
A small AI system should to some degree also be able to take into account.
Also rhetorically, we live in space-time, so I would, taking your eggs, so I will not buy eggs from Australia, I will buy it from my neighbor. Especially definitely goes along with that. So space-time.
There was a second question about reputation. You have asked me that question before, and I have actually answered it before, which is that I don't see why reputation should have the same kind of rich getting richer effect. Reputation you can increase by doing more good deeds relative to your reputation. So if you have a good reputation and you don't do any good deeds, your reputation will get down. But I think that they may be good to have a kind of how do you call it, a discounting factor. Let's suppose that you have a very high reputation. Because of that, many people will do something if you ask them to do. You can in principle do more than somebody with a low reputation. So at that moment, further increases in reputation should be relative to the reputation you have. So they should not increase linearly, but they should increase proportionally. So if, let's say, with a reputation of 100, you do the equivalent of 110, your reputation goes up with 10%. But if with a reputation of 100, you do 100 good deeds, your reputation just stays the same. Because that's what you're expecting from you with that.
Actually, I have quite a lot of questions.
If with your reputation of 100, you do 90 good deeds, your reputation goes down with 10%.
I have quite a few questions about reputation because there are a lot of problems. Suppose you did 1,000. You did 1,000 good deeds and you become very rich, and then you make one mistake, and all your reputation is ruined. With money, it's not like this. If I made 1,000 good transactions and I made one mistake, I still have.
Well, that's why the reputation mechanism should not stop you immediately.
Yeah, so.
But Weaver's point, I think, is valid because that's been my experience on some gift economy platforms, like, for example, couchsurfing. I always say my experience on couchsurfing is you can have 100 positive references. If you have one bad reference, guess what?
Yeah,
it's going to hurt you.
Yeah, I know, but that's
why you went down and killed the guy who gave you that one.
Yeah, actually,
shops almost do that. Like you give a bad reference, so like how much can we pay you to remove this?
Well, I was going to say I recommend it highly. Actually, we recommend Weaver to watch it because you can use this as a popular culture example. But South Park in their new season just did a whole episode on reputation. And on how people use their, like, for example, on Yelp, how high Yelp reviewers.
Mixu, did you have a question?
Yeah, I had a question.
Okay, and then Jean-François, and then after this we go to the next speaker.
Well, it was, but it's already quite long. When Weaver mentions the time dimension, I just wanted to say, if you look at the case of speakeasy, there's always this time dimension in it. If you think about the termites and how what is it again? The sign they give in the pheromones. If the weather wouldn't change and the environment wouldn't change, there you already have that time dimension. So I was wondering, like, if you look at the case of stigmergy, there are some pretty simple examples of how pretty complex things like a changing environment are calculated with a diminishing return of the signal. Now the cases you give with the vibe are more complicated, so of course we need to find more complicated things, but at least it's a starting point.
I suspect there are a couple of relatively simple algorithms also for applications. Like as I said, that you have a kind of diminishing returns on application, so that you cannot somebody explode in application or somebody go down in application. That may just kind of moderate all these kind of otherwise very unpredictable effects.
Yeah, I mean, I think about time, there's no problem incorporating time into what you call the production rules, right? And you're right that opens some ability for speculation, which is just natural and correct, right? I mean, if someone can predict the future better than someone else, really, then there is a genuine exchange value in being able to do that, and there's nothing necessarily wrong with being rewarded for that. Being rewarded for making a better guess regarding time than other people is okay. One of the things we're trying to ward off is sort of increasing returns, where having more lets you get more and more and more and more. And I think having time inside your offers or requests doesn't intrinsically give that sort of intrinsic return dynamic. But the reputation management, as you mentioned, worries me more, and I think that's something where the sort of simulation modeling that an academic group like this should be good at could be very helpful, right? Because I mean, you see easily, like, someone who's a rock star in their domain in whatever way, everyone will just pile on the reputation points until that guy becomes a god. And that's kind of the way people think. So trying to stop that, you're trying to stop people from hero and idol worship, which is similarly trying to stop people from all piling on to the same guy they don't like is also hard, because this is not just math, this is like human mob psychology, right? So how do you tune the reputation system to sort of emphasize the better aspects of human nature and de-emphasize the worst aspects? I think that seems like something where actually running some complex system-style simulation with a bunch of people rewarding each other for doing things with a certain tendency for hero worship and a certain tendency for bullying and so forth, and you see how you could actually tune it. That would be interesting.
But I think most of these things are actually an extremely simple dynamics, which is that it's increasing returns. That means it's a positive feedback. It means for every step, every time it doubles again, and how do you solve that? Turning the exponential growth into a linear growth.
But when someone like Justin Bieber gets built up too much, then people start to hate him and try to beat him down, right? So
the reputation of Justin Bieber should not be like the number of people who like it, but the logarithm of the number of people who like it. That would already be a much more realistic view.
I don't think it's that simple, but I think it would be. But I do think it's amenable to study by simulations of various sorts.
I think one metaphor is really useful here. I mean, the metaphor you used in your paper to say that if you look at it with hunger, at a certain moment, if you eat too much, you actually get sick from eating too much. You could actually apply that to reputation systems like Justin Bieber. If Justin Bieber is getting all of reputation, but he's keeping that reputation, he should get sick and lose reputation. If he's not, I mean, if you're getting reputation and you become becoming a center of where people are looking at, then you need to become a mentor. And you need to start giving it back and showing who are good people following up, who do what. And I think there you can actually, if you build that into a reputation system, then you could actually. So I like the metaphor you have with the hunger. As long as you're hungry, you eat, but it can overshoot. And I mean, I do agree with Ben that if you look at the current practice of reputation system, they actually go faster to this inequality than money. Because it's even more virtual, you can actually get way more easier reputation in the system. So
because
even more.
Because reputation is counted by the number of likes, and that's not a good measure. Because if we would just give the logarithm of the number of likes, it would already become much more reasonable.
But if you take it from
somebody with 10 likes would just be one level below to somebody with 100 likes.
But I think you need to include the overshooting system. Just like you have
Jean-François was another question.
I had the chance to facilitate dozens, hundreds of workshops where people would build other currency systems or other wealth systems than money. And that would include sometimes inflation or mutual credit systems, R-based, or other forms of expression of wealth, like like truth, goodness, beauty, things like that. And each and every time they would have conversations like this, like they implement, let's say, a reputation system, and they say, okay, yeah, but we have a feedback loop here. So then they would move to the next stage and say, oh, okay, so how do we counter that? And maybe we want to do something with time. So they add another component to the system. And then they say, okay, what about also linking reputation to global, carbon footprint, for instance, or how do you behave, in your ecosystem, And so you see an organic way for groups to build a language of wealth in which they add more and more expressive capacities. And they have to learn how to bind things according to their value. And the bottom line of this, which I think is so fascinating, because I have witnessed that hundreds of times, people learn that building a currency constellation means they put their value at work. It creates a model, a living model for a value system, and it becomes an ever ongoing process. So you start very simple in the beginning. For instance, you can tie a mutual credit system if you want in the market economy. You have a mutual credit system, and then you bind it to a reputation, so that the amount of mutual credit you can play with goes connected to the reputation. And then they'll say, okay, but now how do we do with our pregnant women or the children and things like that? So you add another thing and another thing. And so I think we may want to remember that any currency constellation we want to design speaks to the value system we have. And I really find it fascinating.
But it's a combination of economic and politics in a sense, in a manner of speaking.
What you mean is
you need to evolve your value system, and it's exclusively in the transaction ecology of...
It becomes a language of wealth, in which all your values, from the most material things to the most abstract thing, will come at play and interact with each other, which also leads to a very complex question. How do you bind those different levels? How do you bind quality with quantity, for instance? Things like that. So you definitely need to build new expressive capacities here.
So it's an evolving system, actually, your response to this is that the reputation system or whatever value expression system we are going to use needs to be evolvable. It needs to be dynamic and updating all the time according to the dynamics of the society or the agents that are. It's not fixed.
Not only, and it implies that it's not universal, so that you have groups which have different values and therefore different reputation systems.
I want to keep the value as much as possible emerging. The system should involve a kind of a meta-value system, like we agree about something, how to measure the reputation, but then what people consider good or bad, that should be emerged. We should not be imposing that. So making the system too complicated by saying we're going to have this rule for pregnant women and this rule for old people and this rule for carbon dioxide, then it will become a mess. It will become a mess. It will no longer work because somebody will always disagree with it. So these things should, as much as possible, be emergent. This should be a language, a kind of a meta language for expressing values in, but the values themselves should, as much as possible, be emergent. It's not trivial to do that, so I don't know how far we can succeed, but I think that is possible. Like having a reputation system that's as simple as possible, but without having these obvious problems. But for the rest, reputation goes when people think you have done something good, and who are the people to say that you have done something good? Well, that's because that's people like these things. That's the ideal solution. But, yeah.
Yeah, I think that thinking about reputation and your idea of just taking the logarithm, there's probably something deeper that we can figure out with more.
Yeah. I mean, it's an example of
what I've worked like that a lot of the time. The thing is, you have to look somehow use some information theory or something. Like how much information about Justin Bieber is given by this guy saying he's good, right? I mean, if it's, as you say, if it's the second guy saying he's good out of 1 million people, well, there's a lot of information, right? If it's the 100,001st guy saying he's good, there's less information about him being added there. So generically, like all else equal, if you measured how much information is given by each like, it would end up being more logarithmic. But since people are actually independent of each other to some degree, sometimes someone else giving a like, if their pattern of likes is independent of everyone who's liked it so far, then that adds on, right?
That's a more sophisticated solution, which may be more accurate, which again has the disadvantage because it's more complicated.
But if you have all this data, you can actually do that, right? I mean, because given all the likes and offers and requests we've done, you can tell how probabilistically dependent we are. So then maybe me piling on top of you means nothing because we always like the same thing, right?
So you could hide the number of likes so that people who like they wouldn't be influenced by this positive.
This is based on the question of the finding appropriate filter. That's it. Finding the right measure, the right filter.
Well, it's a matter of what are you trying to estimate, right? Yeah.
Well,
you might have complex models.
Likes is an unlimited resource which costs you nothing. You can put 1 million times like or 10 million times and it costs you the same, maybe a little bit.
Right. I mean,
you might hurt your finger.
Yeah.
Some reputation systems are not like that. I mean, there's some sites that give you like a certain number of
yes.
Yeah. That's the very least you should do. Is everybody has a finite number of likes, and whichever like they give to one, they can no longer give to another. Or if they give lots of likes, each of them counts only for 100th of the one.
Or you can make it proportional to your reputation. So if Justin Bieber doesn't like you, then it goes forever until you get Bill Gates to like you.
But the good distinction is you have competitive systems and uncompetitive systems. Like, celebrities, this is a competitive system. However, you might have competitive systems where you throw someone out and, takes over the market share. That's more important. Celebrities and as you say, it costs you nothing.
I suggest we go to the next speaker because we are pretty late already. Who was the next speaker? Was it you?